Hello everyone and welcome to Time to Be Well. I'm Kathy Berry, registered dietitian with the Fountain of Health, and on today's show we are going to be making a recipe makeover for chicken pot pie. This recipe is delicious, healthy, and also appropriate for everyone and especially those who have diabetes. So stay right there. Okay, so our first step of our chicken pot pie is to make some roasted garlic. This roasted garlic is going to give it a lot of rich, deep flavor, and that is going to help us not have to add a lot of fat and salt. So to do this is very, very simple, and this is a wonderful, wonderful little trick to use with lots of different recipes. So all you have to do is just get a whole clove of garlic and kind of trim it up a little bit, and then you sort of take this outside paper off, this light papery covering, and all we're going to do is just drizzle a little bit of olive oil on it just so it doesn't dry out, and then we'll cover it up with some foil. Simple as that. And if you don't have a little ramekin like this that goes in the oven, you can just wrap the whole thing in foil. It's perfectly fine to do it that way as well. And then we're just going to pop this in the oven, and voila, we have one that we've prepared earlier that we can take out, and we bake that for about 45 minutes. And when you bring it out, it looks like this. And there it is. So now, to take that out of there, all you have to do is just, as you can see, these little beautiful cloves of garlic just kind of squeeze out of there. And what we're going to do with that is, once it's cooled down a smidge, it's not terribly hot right now, we're going to mash it up with a fork, and it kind of makes a paste. And you can see that that seems like a lot of garlic to put in a recipe, but once it's roasted like this, it really turns mild and buttery. We're going to mash that into the paste, and then we'll add that to our vegetables as we're cooking. So that's step one. The second part of our chicken pot pie recipe is we're going to start with the base of vegetables. And we're going to start with a little bit of olive oil in our Dutch oven. Now this Dutch oven, as you can tell, has been very well loved. It's prepared a lot of really nice batches of bolognese from my husband. And we are going to use it because it's just these are great pots to cook in. They go from the range to the oven, and it's just a really nice dish. So I really like this guy. So what we're going to start with is some celery. We've got about a half a cup of celery, we've got about a half a cup of onion, and we've got about, half a cup, maybe a little bit more of carrots. And we're just gonna let those cook and kind of work around a little bit in that olive oil. Some people call this a mirepoix. Some people call it a holy trinity. I just call it base because I'm all about that base. So we're just gonna let that kind of get started, and that's going to provide a lot of flavor, and it's also going to give us a lot of nutrients. And for this chicken pot pie dish, we don't want to use a lot of really high starchy foods. We don't want to have a lot of salt. We don't want to have a lot of fat, but we do want to have a lot of flavor. And that's what this will give us with that roasted garlic, all these nice vegetables, and we've got more great vegetables to put in here as well. So we're going to let that start, and we're going to cook that for a bit, and then we're going to add some mushrooms, and it's going to be fantastic. All right, so our celery and our onions and our carrots have been cooking for about 5 minutes, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our sliced mushrooms. Once again, this is just more vegetables, more flavor, and these mushrooms give a really nice, rich, kind of steaky flavor. And we're also going to add some parsnips. Now, we're going to use parsnips instead of potatoes just because they have such a nice flavor, and they also are a pretty good source of fiber. So if you've never seen a parsnip before, this is what they look like. They're kind of like a white carrot, and they're delicious. They have a really sweet, nice, buttery flavor when they're cooked, and it will be really, really nice in this chicken pot pie as opposed to a plain white potato. So we're going to let that all cook, and you can see that this is going to be really hearty. There's going to be lots of flavors, lots of vegetables. So we're going to let that cook for another 5 minutes or so and kind of, you know, have an opportunity to get those flavors all married together, and then we'll simmer it up with some chicken broth, and we're going to add our spices and our garlic paste. The reason why we want to use all these vegetables is because all of these things have different kinds of nutrients that are really, really good for us. For example, the parsnips are nice and high in fiber. They have a little bit more fiber than a potato, and they also have a really rich flavor. It's not the flavor like a turnip or a rutabaga. It's sweet and it's delicious. The mushrooms are going to give a lot of body to this, and mushrooms are one of those vegetables that are high in zinc, and there aren't very many things that are high in zinc, and zinc is one of those things that's really good for you during cold and flu season. They really help you heal and fight off infection with the help of vitamin C. Carrots, of course, are high in vitamin A, lots of fiber in carrots, and celery and onion and garlic are those vegetables that are really good for your heart. So all of these vegetables are really, really good immune system builders, disease fighters, and you just can't find those quantities and qualities in other processed foods like white flour, starch, processed foods of any kind. It's always in a fruit and a vegetable. So when you're making things like soup, stew, casseroles, the more vegetables that you incorporate, the more benefit you are going to have, not just in terms of calorie control, but in terms of disease fighting and immune system building. So that's why we want to have all these beautiful vegetables in not just this chicken pot pie, but everything that we prepare. So this looks like it's just about ready for our broth. We've got about, a cup of low salt chicken broth. Now you can make your own chicken broth, which is really easy. The chicken that we're using in this recipe is just a rotisserie chicken that I took off the bone, and if you want to use those bones and what's left on the chicken besides the skin to make broth, it makes perfectly good broth. You just add a half an onion, a carrot, some celery, and cook it and strain it. It makes perfect broth, and you save yourself some money and you end up with a really nice quality product. So we've added about a cup of low sodium chicken stock or broth. And we're going to add our seasoning. We've got some salt and some pepper. We haven't added any salt yet, so to make it flavorful, we have about a half a teaspoon of salt in there. And then we've got some thyme. And this thyme, combined with this garlic paste that we are going to put in here, is going to be fantastic. So here's our garlic, and it's cooled down, and I'm just going to mash it up with this fork, and it sort of makes a paste. We don't want chunks of garlic in there. We just want it to make a nice flavor that permeates through the whole dish. So, you know, when you roast it, not only does it caramelize, but you're also able to make this kind of paste, which you couldn't do if you were just, you know, chopping it up raw. So that might, again, seem like a lot of garlic, but I promise you, it is a wonderful, wonderful flavor. And when you marry that with all these other big hearty flavors of onions and celery and carrots and parsnips, it's just fantastic. So here's our broth and our seasoning, and I wish you could smell how delicious this smells, because it is absolutely fantastic. Now the original recipe that I played with to come up with this did not have all of the celery, or didn't have any celery, and it didn't have any peas. But I think that when you make a pot pie, you need to have something that's green. So I've got some little frozen peas here, just about, 3/4 of a cup. And I'm just going to stir those in as well, because you need to have all that color in there. The orange carrots, the white parsnips, the nice mushrooms, and the celery and onions. I mean, look at that. That's fantastic. And when you have a chicken pot pie, you know, if you were to purchase one that was commercially made, I mean, we all know that it doesn't have all those beautiful vegetables. So this is a great dish, a great comfort food dish. And you know, speaking of comfort food, we kind of think that it's unhealthy, and sometimes they are, but we all love comfort food, and there's always a way that you can take something that may not be very healthy and you can tweak it to make it super healthy and more delicious than it was originally. So this is just a fine example of that. Okay, so we've got our broth in there, we've got our peas in there, we've got our seasoning in there, we've got our garlic in there, and it is smelling good and looking delicious. And now what we're going to do is, this is the part when we add the chicken. So we're going to toss that in there. We've got about a little bit more than 2 cups of chicken that I just cut off the, took off the bone of a rotisserie chicken. And if you don't typically use rotisserie chicken, that is absolutely fine. You can make your own, but I personally think that rotisserie chicken from the grocery store is a great convenience item. It's very easy to cook with. You can make a lot of really good things with it. Chicken tortilla soup, enchiladas, you name it. That chicken is just a really nice product to use. And of course you don't want to eat the skin, but once you take it off the bone, it's just fantastic. So really handy, nice convenience product. So look at that, all that good chicken, mushrooms. I mean, that is a very healthy dish. And now is the time when we're gonna make it into chicken pot pie. What we've got here is 2 cups of fat-free milk, skim milk, and we've got some cornstarch. Now, the original recipe calls for flour. I personally kind of like cornstarch better. I think that it makes a kind of a cleaner sauce, and it's clearer, and it doesn't have a muddy flavor, so I really like it. And so we're just gonna whisk that into this milk, easy as pie. And then we're gonna pour it right into this wonderful vegetable and chicken combination that we have here. And we're gonna bring that up to a boil. And once it boils for a little bit, that's as thick as it's gonna get. All those starch molecules have popped open, and that's as thick as it's gonna get. So that's how you can always tell when you're cooking something and you add a thickening agent to it. Once it boils, then you know, okay, this is the consistency that it's gonna be, and then you can make adjustments from there. So let's just cover this up for a bit, and we're gonna bring it up to a boil and let it do its magical, wonderful chicken pot pie-ness. And then we're gonna put it in these beautiful little ramekins. We're gonna top it with a nice little phyllo crust on top, which is not as tricky as you may think. And we're gonna bake off some beautiful chicken pot pies. So here we go. And that's the beauty of a Dutch oven.
Holes in the backyard, did you ever wonder where all the water comes from? We use more than 100 million gallons per day. It's a lot, but it's okay, yeah, 'cause we got the mighty, mighty Missouri. We pump it out and clean it up, so fresh, so clean, so crystal clear. It's made pristine and tested out, the best around without a doubt. Some of the cleanest drinking water in the nation.
So it's ready, and here is the unveiling. So check this out. This is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So what we're gonna do with this is I'm gonna ladle it into these beautiful little ramekins that we have. These are about 14-ounce ramekins, so it's a nice portion. And the reason that I like to use these is because it's really important for people who are watching their weight, watching their diabetes, trying to be healthy, to practice a little portion control. And it's really easy to practice portion control if it's there for you. So these are really nice because you can make them individually, slide them into the oven. If there are just the two of you, here's some cute little tops that once they're baked off, you can just pop the top on, and there you go. You can take it off to lunch with you tomorrow. So that's a tip and a trick for you today. All right, so the filling is ready, so we're just gonna ladle this healthy, delicious, flavorful filling right into these nice little crock ramekins that we have. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? And by the way, a typical chicken pot pie will have like 600 calories and it's loaded with fat. This particular recipe, as you can see, this makes 4, and each one of these has 310 calories. So that's a huge savings in terms of calories. But more importantly than that, you end up with something that's super, super nutritious. And whenever you incorporate a lot of fiber and protein into a meal, that's what keeps you full. When you eat things that are kind of refined and not a lot of protein, a glazed donut, for example, it doesn't fill you up for a long time. But fiber from vegetables married with protein is the secret, I think, to weight control, and it also keeps you full for a long time. So this is a perfect dish for that, and it also is a comfort food. So what we're going to top with this chicken pot pie, as you can see, we didn't use a double crust. Now, traditionally, a chicken pot pie would be have the pie crust on top. We're not going to use the pie crust. The pie crust has got tons of fat, like 6 to 10 grams per fat for one little tiny portion. But what we're going to use is this phyllo dough. Now, they say that phyllo dough is tricky to work with. It comes in a roll like this, and you kind of roll it, you kind of let it thaw out, and then you kind of roll it out. I've cut mine in strips with the help of my saintly and beloved daughter, Bridget. Typically, if there's a way to do something wrong, I figure that out right off the bat. But this is not as tricky as you might think. You just kind of roll it out, slice it up, and then we're going to make a lattice across the top of it. It's pretty simple. So as you can see, there's no fat in this, and it's these tiny little layers. And that's what makes it crispy, and that's what makes it, you know, have that nice crust. So we're just going to make a couple of these that go across the top, and it's going to be very pretty and very homey by the time we get it all done. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, if you wanted to use like a little cookie cutter and make a pattern like an apple or a heart or something, that would be dandy too. I just kind of like this little lattice top. I thought that would be pretty. And here's our pizza cutter. So if you want to make it, you know, a tiny bit, if you didn't like the way that like it was originally, you can kind of trim it up. Like this one happens to be a little long, so we'll just cut that end off. And you can see it's not that tricky to work with. They say the secret is covering it up so it doesn't dry out and break. So we thawed ours out, and we cut it in strips, and we're just gonna pop it on the top. Again, you know, it doesn't have to be a work of art. It's going to be, by the time it gets baked, see, look how pretty that looks. It's going to be very, very pretty. It browns up nicely, and it gives just a nice little crust to the top to give it that nice chicken pot pie crust, but doesn't have all the fat and calories that we typically get from chicken pot pie. And as you can see, the sauce does not have a lot of fat. It just had skim milk, a little bit of cornstarch. All of the ingredients are really, really healthy. And then this little phyllo crust, you know, it's not out of line at all for someone who's watching their calories and their fat. So there we go. So we don't need the rest of this. We're just going to toss that aside. And we don't need any of that. So that goes over there. I'm going to put these on this little pan, little baking pan. Look how pretty those are. And I'm going to take those over to the oven, and we're going to bake them off at about 400 for 15-20 minutes. And that is a beautiful, beautiful chicken pot pie. So here we go. To the oven. In they go. All right, we are ready, and this is beautiful. You are going to love it. We've got 4 beautiful little ramekins of chicken pot pie. Check those out. Aren't they gorgeous? And these, you could put these in the freezer to save for another time. They're very, very versatile. I also happened to make one in a big casserole. And this is also, you could also do this and take this to a potluck. This time of year, there's lots of opportunities for potluck. And I wouldn't even tell people that it was healthy. I would just let them enjoy it, eat it, tell you how fabulous it is. And then you could say, oh, by the way, it's healthy and it's easy as pie, chicken pot pie. And they'll, of course, want to know the recipe. So there you go. That's how that works. But I love these little ramekins for, like we said before, they're great to take to work. They're great to keep your portion size at an appropriate, amount. And this is a nice big 14-ounce ramekin. This is also really applicable. If you're making a big batch, you could just double it, put one in the freezer, and then also have these to eat through the week. So stay right there. When we come back, we're going to talk to an expert on diabetes.
Fact: Americans consume too much sodium. Sodium raises blood pressure and puts you at risk for heart disease or stroke. What's too much? Most people consume more than 3,400 milligrams a day, but less than 2,300 is recommended. Even less for others. A lot of sodium is hidden in processed foods, not the salt shaker. A regular sandwich can have over 1,500 milligrams of sodium. Guess what? Add a can of soup and you're over the limit. Here's what you can do. Buy fresh, frozen, or no salt added canned vegetables and eat more fruit. Use fresh poultry, fish, and other lean meats. Use low or reduced sodium items and limit sauces and mixes. Choose wisely when eating out. Restaurant food can be high in sodium. Ask for low sodium options. Most importantly, learn to read nutrition facts labels. Less sodium, better health.
Welcome back. Today we have a special guest with us on Time to Be Well. This is Suzanne Friesen, diabetes educator from St. Luke's. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Suzanne, can you just tell me a little bit about diabetes?
Sure. Diabetes is high blood sugar. And that happens when the body's unable to metabolize nutrients from food properly, causing the high blood sugar, and the high blood sugars cause damage.
All right. Okay. Well, I understand that there's pre-diabetes that can be prevented, type 2 diabetes that's highly preventable, and type 1 diabetes. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and that means that the body's immune system attacks the pancreas, which makes insulin. So in type 1, these people no longer make insulin and they have to take injections for the rest of their life. In type 2 diabetes, that is really a disease more related to lifestyle and environment. And the typical person with diabetes is over 40, overweight, and sedentary. They may be treated with medication, they may be treated with insulin, or they may just be treated with diet and exercise.
All right.
And then you have prediabetes, which is the precursor to type 2 diabetes, and basically you have insulin resistance occurring in the body.
So would you say that the prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, the prevention and the management is very similar?
Very similar.
Okay. And what top 3 things would you say would be your recommendations?
So the top 3 things for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes are healthy diet, exercise, and maintain a healthy weight.
All right. Okay. Well, you heard it here first. And Suzanne, today we made this is a recipe makeover. It's a chicken pot pie that is appropriate for those with diabetes. It has 300 calories, 308 to be exact, 31 grams of carbohydrate, and that comes from a host of vegetables, carrots, parsnips, mushrooms, onions, a little peas. It has very nice roasted chicken and a very small phyllo crust on top.
Looks delicious. I like the phyllo crust on top.
Thank you.
Is there a bottom crust?
No, there is not. And you don't miss it.
Yummy.
All right. Well, would you like to sample it?
I would love to.
All right. Well, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I wish you had smell-o-vision. What do you think?
Delicious.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
You are very welcome. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you for taking care of yourself with better living, better eating, better nutrition. All of these recipes can be found on our website, and follow us on Pinterest.